Hello and welcome to Dad and Swebb Talk Sports. I'm Swebb.
And I'm Dad.
And we are the dad and daughter duo talking about all of our favorite sports moments from the week. Dad, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Swebb. It's going pretty good.
How was your weekend?
Pretty busy. Pretty busy.
Yeah?
Pretty busy. Went over and saw some tennis on Sunday afternoon, Thursday night with you, Thursday night, and then saw the championship match on Sunday afternoon. It was pretty good.
We saw the Credit Open Charleston Cup. The Thursday night, I was in town, and we watched Madison Keys take on, her name is Anna Kalinskaya. Unfortunately, she lost. She did not show up ready to play. She lost in straight sets. But you got to see some good tennis this past week because you saw the championship match. Jessica Pegula ends up winning, defeating Sofia Kenin.
Yep, it was good, and it's a nice stadium they have there. Every seat is a good seat. You're not that far away. The prices are great.
We managed to get a few free tickets, so the prices were spectacular. And we didn't really eat at the stadium, and parking is free. What a concept. So it was practically a free excursion for a WTA 500 tournament, which is, you had, I would say, 5 of the top 10 players in the world played in this tournament.
Parking is free. You park in a parking lot, and then they have a shuttle bus that brings you right to the front gate, Swebb.
And it was 70-something degrees, 75 degrees.
On Sunday, it was in the low 80s.
And it's 44 degrees here in New York. So I came back to what feels like the third winter. They say you normally have one winter, then there's like what they call fake spring, then there's a second winter. I thought we had passed the winter temperatures, and this morning I thought about whipping out my winter coat again.
Yeah, no, it was in the 70s, and on Sunday it was in the 80s. It was hot. But
now,
it was very windy, so it was you didn't feel it.
A nice cool breeze, a little humid, but not too bad. Mm-hmm. I would say the weather was perfect. Now, did you stay awake for the whole championship match?
Yes, I did.
Interesting. And I think that you're lying on camera. We're catching you in a lie, because I sat next to you during the Madison Keys match on Thursday, and you were sleeping during the pre-match, which is one thing.
Do you have any?
But then you also.
Do you have any proof of that?
I have plenty of proof. Here we go. And then you also, so that same video, just put that on repeat. That was you throughout the whole entire match. Missed the whole thing.
But Sunday, it was earlier in the day, and I was awake the whole time.
I think the match started at 7. Maybe we got there at like 6, so it might have. I think it started at like 6:30.
That was Thursday. That was Thursday evening.
On Thursday, you should be awake for that. But I don't know. Just prior to us recording this episode, you were asleep, and I had to call you to wake you up to tell you that it was time to record.
I was just resting my eyes, Swebb. It's been a long day.
So, yeah. Okay. All right. Long day from the house. All right. Well, it was great spending time with you this past weekend. Should we talk about the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's talk about that, Swebb.
The Florida Gators end up pulling off the comeback win. They were down by 12 in the second half. They come back to beat the Houston Cougars 65-63, which means that you and Donald Weber tied for first for the Dad and Swebb Bracket Challenge.
And you said I had no shot to win.
You know what? After Houston took down Duke, I had a good feeling that Houston was going to win, and I had picked Houston as the winner. Unfortunately, I get no points for the championship game because Houston ended up losing. You and Donnie had picked Florida, So you end up getting all the points and you come back. You were down way in the dumps. You were in the gutter. And then you come back thanks to the Florida Gators.
Never count me out, Swebb. I know how to come back. I know how to come from behind.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
So they say. That and Houston really has no offense.
They don't have as enough of offense as Florida, but they have a tremendous defense.
They do have a tremendous defense. Like, listen, I'll take the one win that I will take is the fact that they beat Duke on Saturday night. They came from behind. They were down 6 points with 34 seconds left. Ended up coming back to win that game and won 70-67. So I will take that as a little moral victory in all of this. And their challenge was they didn't necessarily have a player on the team that you could give the ball to take that last shot. I think that was their challenge. It was a miracle that they beat Duke. Duke certainly blew the end of that game in the semifinal. And the game on the line, down 2, you have the ball with 19 seconds left. You hope to get a good shot. Give it credit to Florida for playing great defense, and you go on to win the Dad and Swebb Bracket Challenge.
Yeah, Florida played great defense without fouling. And all 3 of those games, those teams were so evenly matched. Every game was one of the best Final Fours I've seen in a long time. There was no blowouts. Every game came right down to the last shot.
Not too shabby when you have all number 1 seeds. I guess the committee got it right.
Yeah, they did.
So, talking about college basketball, UNC has made some moves in the past week. We talked about college sports and the transfer portal, but UNC has got commitments from a 7-foot center, Henry Vieser from Arizona, and a shooting guard, Jonathan Powell from West Virginia. And today, Monday night, Seth Trimble announces that he's coming back for his senior year.
And Ian Jackson is leaving.
Ian Jackson is leaving. Jalen Washington is leaving. Elliot Cadeau, we mentioned last week, has left. He's going to Michigan. We'll see where Ian Jackson goes. He was on the ACC freshman team this year, but very inconsistent. Showed flashes of greatness, able to take over games, but also very sloppy with the ball. Not always focused on defense. And ultimately, it resulted in some playing time being taken from him because he was just losing focus between the turnovers and between not playing defense. I mean, this is a guy sometimes you watch a game and he wouldn't even have a single rebound in the game. So, there are things there. He's a freshman. Freshmen make mistakes. There are things sometimes that seemed a little bit like his head wasn't always in the game. You hate to see a highly touted recruit coming out of high school, a 5-star recruit, go on to transfer to another school after his freshman year. But I'm not too concerned with the departure of Ian Jackson. I think, it affects the depth that they might have, but they do have good freshmen coming in. I think the biggest thing for them and the one gap that they need to fill is the point guard position.
Yes, they have to fill that, and they need a few more shooters, and they have a bunch of guys coming there on Friday for visits. Some real good players. But let me tell you something. This isn't sustainable the way the college game is set up. With this transfer portal that you can transfer out. First of all, these kids aren't being taught anything. Okay? The minute you come up against a hard, you have to improve or you have to learn more or a little, and they just transfer out and they know they can go to the next school, make more money, and then be able to transfer and play right away. That's what the problem is. You used to have to think about transferring because you have to sit out a whole year and not play. But now these guys know they can just fall into another place. Do you know, out of the top 20 players, these 5-star recruits, there's about 20 of them every year. Do you know, just about all of them, only like 2 of them are coming back to their original school.
Well, there are a few things
The
here that you
player
touched
of the
on.
year in the Big East on St. John's. The best player on the team
Well, I
and in the
think there's
conference.
something behind that. He was benched in
Well,
the last game of the season, so I think that there's something there. But he is, to date, and credit to him, said all the right things. He said he's focused on trying to get to the NBA. So who knows if he actually ends up deciding not to forego his remaining eligibility so that he can be in the NBA draft. You touched on a few things here. I think when you talk about UNC, they need a few more shooters. The challenge is with the transfer portal now is guys have no patience. They want to be guaranteed playing time. So a guy who needs to develop and needs more time is now has the freedom to go to another school and demand to play. Now, whether he ends up playing the whole season, because I think coaches can very well promise things that they can't always deliver. But the problem is now all of these players want guaranteed playing time, and they want to dictate, their court time. The other thing here that I think is a challenge is, yes, the development. So you're getting guys that you practically have to be like ready to go, which is not necessarily, that doesn't always happen in college sports, so that you come in, you step foot on campus and you're ready to be an all-American player. The game moves differently. It's faster. You're playing against more athletic people than you did in high school. And so there's time that you need to develop and grow your mind for the game. I think that's been the challenge too when watching UNC, is the basketball IQ is very low across a lot of the guys on the team in terms of the mental mistakes that they would make. And when I say basketball IQ, I mean mental mistakes that they would make, turnovers that would happen throughout the game, and not being able to make adjustments. When they'd see that something wasn't working, not being able to adjust. And also when they'd see that an opposing team scored 3 times down the court on a pick and roll, not being able to adjust on defense either. So these are things now with college basketball that are really just unfortunate, and I think the NCAA needs to get this under control. The other thing that I thought was funny is ESPN, they always do their, top 25 ranked teams, the early poll for the 2025-2026 season. And I'm laughing because I'm like, you don't even know who everyone's playing, who's on the roster yet.
Right.
None of these rosters are completely filled out. I think they had UNC ranked at like 22, 23. It's like, you don't even know who's going to be on the team yet. So, yeah, the whole thing sucks. But let's talk about some professional sports, because I could go on and on about college sports and how messed up it is.
If they keep it up, they're ruining college sports. Okay?
I think
and
they're
in
at the
turn,
point
they're
now where
ruining
it's
the
ruined.
NBA, because these kids are going to the NBA. These NBA teams are drafting these kids on potential, and these kids haven't even learned how to play the game of basketball properly yet. That's why they have to have 10 coaches. Every NBA team has 10 coaches, okay? Back in the late 60s, early 70s, you had a coach, head coach, and you had a trainer sitting on the bench. That was it.
Well,
When a guy had played 4 years in college and then he got to the NBA, he knew how to play basketball already. Then it was just a question of melding in with his teammates and learning the system and so forth.
sure. And if a guy left early, and if a guy left after his sophomore year, he was like an incredible player, and he was going on to hopefully be a superstar in the league. If a guy left after his junior year, which was typically when a lot of players left, you felt like they had gotten enough experience during the college season and during their college career to go on to be very impactful NBA players. When a guy leaves after his freshman year or after his sophomore year, and he's played in two different programs, we're not entirely sure that he's got a mind for the game, let alone, yes, the physical capabilities might be there, but the game moves a lot faster when you're playing against other players that are just as athletic or just as big as you are. So let's talk about the Knicks.
Well, one more thing. And when you do that, you keep hopping around. Some guys are playing at 4 and 5 different colleges. You've made no relationships with any. Forget about the basketball. You've made no relationships with anybody in the business office, professors, anybody that can help you with your future. Because most of these guys are not going to play professional in the NBA. They're not going to. Okay? So what happens? They haven't made any relationships with anybody at the school that's going to help them down the road. Any alumni that could help them, because they're just in, out, in, out.
Well, we could go on and on about college sports. I think in general, there's a culture issue in terms of just the NCAA. We talked about coaches leaving when their seasons were still going on. So there's no loyalty or character built on either side. You can't expect a player to be loyal when coaches aren't loyal. The other thing here is I think we need to go back to having mentors, parents, coaches telling you, hey, you need more time and you're not the superstar that you think that you are. The truth hurts sometimes, but it also will make you better. So I think that there's this free for all of, oh, he's going to take all this money here. Like sometimes you need to just reset and say, is this actually worth it in terms of not just the money, but all of the other factors that play into it? The school, the academics, the alumni base, the coaching, the mentorship that you can get from other folks on the staff. I think that there's a lot there that we could spend hours and hours talking about, but I think it's ultimately the NCAA has a huge problem, and it's a culture and societal issue. Kids can't handle the truth. Parents need to be more honest. Coaches need to be more honest. Mentors, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, older brothers, older sisters need to be more honest. The truth hurts sometimes, but it'll oftentimes make you better. You can learn from it.
You know that from experience.
Well, I'm the outlier in all of this. So, anyways, let's talk about the Knicks, because the Knicks are 50-28. They clinched home court advantage for the first round of the playoffs. Right now, they're sitting solidly in the third spot in the East, 8 games back of the Celtics with 4 games left on the season. So, barring any major malfunctions in the last week of the season, they should finish in that third spot. Tonight, Tuesday night, they'll play Boston. Thursday night, they play at Detroit. Friday versus Cleveland. Sunday at Brooklyn. Boston and Cleveland are safely in their spots. 2 for Boston, 1 for Cleveland. So I don't know if they're going to bring their top tier guys and have them play 36 minutes a game. But we'll see. Unfortunately, I would love to see a highly competitive game where everyone's playing, because the Knicks have had trouble against Boston and Cleveland. They've gone winless. So as it stands, they're set to, if everything stayed the same with 4 games remaining, they're set to face the Detroit Pistons in the first round of the playoffs, which could be very difficult. They've gone 1-2 against the Pistons this year. But Jalen Brunson's back. He played 34 minutes on Sunday versus Phoenix. Mitch Robinson is now healthy and playing solid minutes, and the team looks way better defensively. And OG Anunoby, he's been on a tear. In the last 10 games, he's averaging 27.6 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, and 1.7 steals.
That's a guy that has improved his game a lot. He was always a great defensive player, great team player, but his offense has picked up. And he was always a pretty good shooter. Wide open, he could hit the shot. But now he's doing more things. You can tell he's worked on his game. Okay? After signing that big contract. So he can't say, well, he's doing this so he can get more money. He signed a big contract and he's gotten better. Not many players can say that.
He's hitting his stride at the right point of the season, right? Like at the beginning, he seemed a little inconsistent. There seemed like there were some grumblings over not getting the ball enough on offense. I think in the past month or so with Jalen Brunson out, at first the team looked discombobulated, but over time they've all found and stepped into these roles. And so this is what we've talked about with injuries sometimes. It gives people the opportunity to step up. And now you have the starters firing at all cylinders, but then you also have some bench players that have played more minutes than they were probably going to, knowing the way that Tibbs likes to or doesn't really like to use the bench, to where you can be going into the playoffs with a solid team of guys who are confident and playing at their best.
Yeah.
And healthy.
Yeah. It's that first round, if they play Detroit's going to be tough. I'm telling you now. They're going to be tough. They talk about a team that's come out of nowhere and become a good team. And they have good young players. Now, they've never played in a playoff series, most of those young players. And the game is a lot different, a lot more pressure, so we'll see what happens. So the Knicks have to beat them. Then they got either Boston or Cleveland sitting there waiting for them.
Yeah, the last time they played Detroit was in January. I think the team is different now in April, but we'll see. They played Detroit at Detroit on Thursday, so this could be a good test to see. I'd like them to come out and just lay down the gauntlet and make sure that they leave no mercy, so that Detroit maybe is a little bit nervous going into the playoffs, having a week prior played against and potentially losing against the Knicks on this game on Thursday.
Right. We'll see what happens.
So we'll talk a little bit more about the playoffs next week, but let's talk about the Yankees, because the Yankees are struggling. They're not going to go 162-0. They're now 6-5. They're on a 3-game losing streak, having lost on Tuesday afternoon to the Detroit Tigers. It's a long season.
The pitching isn't the starting pitching. It's not sustainable. Now, the good news is Clark Schmidt should be back in about a week. Okay, so he's going to step into one of those starting pitching spots. That's the good news.
I mean, you can't start the season with a bunch of crumbs as your starting pitching rotation and expect to have a ton of success. So it is good to hear that Clark Schmidt is going to be coming back. We know that Garrett Cole is out for the season and Luis Gil is probably out till the All-Star break.
But he might be back a little sooner. He's going to start.
We'll see.
He's going to start throwing this week. So. We'll see.
You know, it's one of those things, like, remember when we thought that Mitchell Robinson would be back in December, and they had said that. So I'm setting expectations. I'm setting expectations here.
He's a different case. He's a case all by himself.
I'm setting expectations because Mitch Robinson didn't come back until February. So you never know. There could be some setbacks. Hopefully everything goes as he goes healthy and it goes smoothly. But I would say some bright spots for the Yankees. Obviously on offense, they're playing tremendously well, and that has kind of been that's one of the reasons that with this hodgepodge starting rotation, they're able to have 6 wins already. But it's not just the Aaron Judges, the Paul Goldschmidts. It's not just your former MVPs that are hitting the ball. It's also your young players that haven't played consistently until this season. Trent Grisham is batting .379 with 3 home runs. Oswald Peraza is at batting .286. And Ben Rice is batting .323 with 2 home runs.
Yep, it's because you're finally giving some of these young guys a chance to. Well, Grisham isn't that young. I think he's like 26, 27, but he sat on the bench all last year. He was like a defensive replacement guy. But before he came to the Yankees, he was on San Diego, and he played. He was like an everyday player. He was a Gold Glove center fielder. So some of these guys getting a chance to play, you find out you don't have to be spending you can't pay everybody $40 million. There's got to be some players that are producing on low salaries. And that's what they have right now.
Now, we have talked about this with MLB because the Red Sox just signed one of their young players to an 8-year deal. We have talked about one. I want to see the Yankees do that with some of their young players, the Anthony Volpes, the Austin Wellses. I know that they're a little bit cold this past week, but it's a long season. And these are guys, if you believe that these guys are your future, let's lock them into long-term contracts. You get them at a little bit of a discount.
You get them at a big discount.
You get to hold on to them for 8 years.
You get them at a big discount if they continue to play well. If they don't continue to play well, then you're stuck with a pretty big contract on a guy that hasn't produced. The Red Sox signed a guy that hasn't even come up to the majors yet. He's still in the minor leagues.
I wouldn't do that, but Anthony Volpe is now in his 3rd season. That's a little bit different. The sample size is a lot larger here to say, okay, if we think that he's going to be our future, let's go ahead and lock him in, because there's also guys that you take a chance on that do have a history of a proven history, and they come and they signed for $20 million, and that ends up being an expensive 3 years, $20 million per year contract. And we've had many of those. Many teams have had many of those. So, hey, if a guy has played for Austin Wells, if he halfway through the season, if he's had a great season, lock him into a long-term contract.
Usually the first 9 years of a guy's career are probably his best. They did that with Jeter. They signed him to a 10-year contract when he was like 25. They signed Cano to a 6-year contract when he was...
But don't just wait until the end of the season. Like, let's do it now.
Well,
Not now, maybe in a month or two, but I say do it during the season. None of this, let's wait until the end, where now you're at the negotiating table and it's a lot, you lose a little bit of leverage if they have a fantastic season. And, so we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. But you got to be careful because the money is crazy. You don't want to get stuck paying big money to a guy. Remember Gary Sanchez? He made 2 All-Star teams. Can you imagine if they had signed him to a long-term contract back then? And he hasn't broken 200. I don't even know what team he's on. He's on a different team every year now. Baseball's a funny
matter
sport.
Of mentality I wouldn't do it just on a whim. I would look at you have your analytics, you have all these things. Bring back the guy who created the torpedo bat and let me know if he is let me know his thoughts on these players. And
now
and
everybody's using those torpedo bats.
Players.
And then we find out that a lot of guys were using those torpedo bats last year. Lindor was using that on the Mets, was using that torpedo bat last year.
This is why you can't watch the nightly news, folks. Do your own research. Okay, so let's talk about a few highs and lows over the past week.
What's that?
Kevin De Bruyne, my favorite soccer player, the Belgian midfielder from Man City, has announced this past week that he is leaving after 10 years with the club. He is going to be 34 in June. My understanding is that the club did not want to bring him back on a big contract, but he will leave at the end of the season. Now, Man City has not had a great season. They haven't even had a good season. They're vying for a spot in qualifying for the Champions League for next year. 6-time Premier League winner, 2-time FA Cup winner, 5-time English Football Cup winner, 2-time Community Shield winner, 1-time Champions League winner, 4-time Man City Player of the Season, 3-time UEFA Team of the Year, 2-time Premier League Player of the Season, 2-time PFA Player of the Season, 1-time UEFA Midfielder of the Season, and 3-time Premier League Playmaker of the season, which means that he had the most assists. He led the league in assists in 3 different seasons. One of the best midfielders in the game of football, certainly in Premier League history. A guy who made me fall in love with soccer and with Man City. It wasn't hard because he's spectacular. So I'm sad to see him go. Man City's got some work to do. They need to completely restructure their roster, and a guy like Kevin De Bruyne is irreplaceable. The year that he tore his ACL, Man City ended up losing to Liverpool. They finished second in the Premier League that season. So when he's out of the lineup, now granted he's a different player at 33, almost 34, but for that 10-year stretch when he's out of the lineup, Man City wasn't as good of a team. So that's my low of the week.
Yeah, that guy was good. He was real good. But if they want to have a good team, you can't keep these old players. You got to move on and bring in young players.
When the body starts to go, the body starts to go.
Right.
And it's never more evident than when you're watching sports. Guys who in your head you've seen them be incredible, the best player, the most athletic player in the world, within a few seasons, all of a sudden, they just don't have it the way that they used to. It is, and it happens in every sport. When the body starts to go, the body goes, and that's it. There's no coming back. There's no stopping Father Time. So, there are other athletes that I can think of that once it went, it went. DJ LeMahieu.
Well, his body
That's
just
just one
broke
example.
down.
Yeah. Well, when it goes, it goes. There's no chasing after it. So, my high, Grand Slam track, had their first meet ever in Kingston, Jamaica. It was a 3-day event. We're bringing together some of the best track and field athletes, or the best track athletes, the best runners, in both men and women in professional track and field. The attendance wasn't great on TV, but I thought the coverage was great. I thought some of the races were really good. The men's 1500 ended up having an upset winner. The men's 5,000, and the athletes looked like they were really into it. So I'm excited. The next meet is in Miami, May 2nd through the 4th. I'm excited to continue to watch Grand Slam track. They've done a great job of making track relevant to a larger audience.
Yeah, and when you were watching, I saw you watching that, and I said, "Man, this what is it over? The stadium is empty." You organizing a league like that or an event like that, you can't have it in a place that people aren't showing up to. You bring those kind of athletes to, say, L.A., Los Angeles Coliseum, or even one of these track stadiums at one of these colleges in Texas or Louisiana or something. Place will be packed.
Well, there are 3 more meets for the Grand Slam track season. The next meet will be in Miami. Then later in the summer, they'll be in Philadelphia. And then at the end of the season, they'll be in LA. So I think that they were vying for the Jamaican fan base, loving track and field and loving their sprinters. And they definitely didn't show up on night 1. Throughout the rest of the weekend, they showed up a little bit more, but I think that there's some room for improvement there. But the races themselves were great. I thought the way that they communicated the league and the point structure and the winners of each race, each runner ran 2 races. If they ended up with the highest points, they won $100,000 for that weekend. So you could tell that there was like a sense of urgency. The runners were into it. Job well done by Grand Slam track. Certainly room for improvement in terms of attendance and creating a vibrant atmosphere on site. But that was a high for me.
What did you have to do to win $100,000?
So they separated the runners into different race groups. They had like long distance runners, short long distance runners, so guys who ran the 1500 and the 800. Long distance would be runners who ran the 3,000 and the 5,000. Long hurdles was 400-meter hurdles and a 400-meter. So, like, they ran one of those races in back-to-back days. Short hurdles was 100-meter hurdles and the 100 meters. And then long sprints was 200-meter and 400-meter. Short sprints was 100-meter, 200-meter. So they separated all of these groups. There were like 6 to 8 groups of runners. 8 runners in each group that ran in these two races throughout the weekend, and you get points based off of where you finish. So if you finished in first, you got 12 points. If you finished in second, you got 8 points, and all the way down. So if you finish in first and in one race and second in the other, then you end up getting 20 points for the weekend. So of each of those groups of runners that they matched, so there were a lot of runners running outside of what they're known for, but still within a distance that they should be able to put together a good race, which most of the races were. But if you finished with the most points in your grouping, then you won $100,000, and then the prize money went down depending on where you finished.
Hey, if I knew there was that kind of money they were throwing around, I'd get back in shape, Swebb.
Is that what it's going to take?
For that kind of money, yeah, I'll get in
We
shape.
can start a fundraiser for you to get you in shape because, it's past time for you. Now, what are you excited about this upcoming week, Dad? Anything in particular? I've talked about my highs and lows of the past week. Anything you're excited about this week?
Well, I'm headed north, Swebb. I'm headed north for a few days. And
Back to New York.
And on that trip, I have a young man that I'm going to get a chance to see play baseball for the first time in a few years.
Well, bring your coat because it's about 40 degrees here.
I remember those days. Young man, I gave him a lefty hitter. I gave him the nickname of Griff for Ken Griffey Jr. Lefty hitter, good pull power, contact hitter, line drives to all fields. And he has two brothers that might even wind up being a better player than him someday. Two younger brothers. But so I'm going to get a chance to see him. He just made his high school team for the first time. Get a chance to see him play a few games. And we'll see what else.
All right. Well, I'm excited. It's not a week, or it's next week, actually, so it won't happen this week. But the Women's College Gymnastics Championship meet takes place next Thursday and Saturday. So the 8 teams that have qualified for the semifinals are LSU, Michigan State, Utah, and UCLA on one side of the bracket, Oklahoma, Florida, Missouri, and Alabama on the other side of the bracket. The top 2 teams from each bracket make it to the Final Four, which will take place on Sunday. So I'm really excited about that because it's 6 of the top or 7 of the top 8 teams in the country throughout the course of the season. So it should be a good meet.
Who did you say is in that again?
LSU, the defending champions, Utah, UCLA, and Michigan State are on one side of the bracket, and Oklahoma, Florida, Missouri, and Alabama are on the other side of the bracket.
A whole bunch of SEC schools.
Lots of SEC schools, and now Big Ten with Michigan State, Utah, and UCLA. No, Utah, I don't even know what conference they're in now. I think they might be in the Big 12. I think they're in the
Big 12. These schools, they move around so much you can't even keep track.
I don't even know. And, I think
nothing they're in the Big
flying
12.
Across the country.
I think they're in the
to
Big
be part
12.
of. Well, the SEC is stacked for this sport, but I'm excited for that. And then I'm probably gonna stay in and wear sweatpants for the rest of the week because I can't handle this cold weather.
It's that cold up there?
It is not. I thought about going for a run this morning and I decided against it. So.
Oh boy.
I'll wait until next week. It is supposed to warm up this weekend.
Oh, great.
So let's hope that it's not raining.
How warm is it going to get?
In the 60s, but it's supposed to rain a lot.
Oh, great.
So enjoy your trip up here. All right. So before we close things out, do you want to leave us with a dad tip of the week?
Yeah. I'm just distressed about the way college sports are turning into this. Kids jumping all over the place. They're not learning anything. And as soon as it gets hard in one place, or a coach gets on them in one place, or benches them, they leave and they go to the next place. They're not learning anything. Oh yeah, they're making a little money, but by the time they pay taxes on that money, and because some of these guys are making 6 figures, 7 figures in some cases, so it's a lot of tax they're paying. And then they got to pay their agent, the guy that got them that contract. And then by the time they waste money and buy special headphones and soup up their car that they got, there's not that much money left. And they're not learning anything. And they're not developing relationships because business and your future is based on relationships. No matter how smart or how good you are, you're not going to make it on your own. You're going to need other people that came before you, older people, to help you. And if you haven't developed any relationships, you're on a lonely road down the road, and that money's going to be gone. And if your parents aren't connected,
bring it home, Dad. Bring it home.
It's just
land the plane.
Stay where you are and make the best of where you are.
All right. Stay where you are, make the best of where you are, and the truth hurts sometimes, but you can learn a lot from the truth.
Right.
Constantly try to improve as well. All right. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Dad and Swebb Talk Sports. Be sure to follow us at Dad and Swebb on Instagram and X, and subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, and share this episode with a friend. We will see you next week.
So long.
Thank you for tuning in to Dad and Swebb Talk Sports, the show where we cover all of our favorite sports moments from the past week. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, and follow us at Dad and Swebb on Instagram and X. See you next week.